Students, today our topic is conveyors. We know already that different classes of conveyors forming the conveyor group is by far the most frequently used material handling equipment, primarily for conveying the bulk materials in process industries and also for conveying certain types of unit loads in large quantities. So here we have already discussed the belt conveyor part, but still I am going to recapitulate it for you. And we already know that a belt conveyor consists of an endless flat and flexible belt of sufficient strength. Now there are some general characteristics of a belt conveyor. Belt conveyors, they operate in one vertical plane. It may be horizontally also or with an inclination plane, depending on the frictional property of the load conveyed. Please remember, depending on the frictional property of the load conveyed. And secondly, for changing the direction of the materials being conveyed in the horizontal plane, more than one belt conveyors are needed. And third one may be conveying capacity of a conveyor can be controlled by changing the belt speed. And to mention the fourth one, belt conveyors are generally employed for continuous flow of materials. Please remember, continuous flow of materials. These metal or special belts can carry hot, abrasive and reactive materials. Now there are certain kinds of belt conveyors like flat belt conveyor and troughed belt conveyor. Yes, you can see that on your screen. And closed belt conveyor and metallic belt conveyor, etc., etc. And there are also portable conveyors, you know, the rope driven belt conveyor, submerged belt conveyor. These are all separate parts or kinds of belt conveyor. Each and every one has its different use. Now coming to the parts of a belt conveyor, mainly we know that it is a constructional feature of a belt conveyor. That is, the main component is already the conveyor belt. Main conveyor is the conveyor belt. Sorry for the interruption. We were discussing about the parts of a belt conveyor, and the parts are conveyor belts. Most commonly, most obvious it is, which supports and actually conveys the load. It is the essential and most important component of any belt conveyor. And next will be this is the conveyor belts must have a belt construction part. It must have a belt cover. It will have a belt width and belt splicing as well. I have already discussed about the belt splicing in my earlier classes. And the next one is idlers. The idlers are the rollers used at certain spacing for supporting the active as well as the return side of the belt. And they are actually two types of idlers in any belt conveyor. Those are straight carrying return idlers and troughing idler sets. And these idlers also have specific construction parts, and they are conforming the IS number 9295:1983. They must be uniformly machined all over the outer diameter and the two ends of the inner diameter. The tubes of an idlers are mounted on anti-friction bearings over a fixed steel spindle. The ends of the spindles are flat machined to standardize the dimension for quick fixing in slots or in the idler structures. The idlers are made of heavy steel tubes for severe service condition like material loading section, or it can be made of cast iron in corrosive applications types like handling cokes or etc. And the idlers have a specific dimension or idler dimension as well, and idler spacings, those are also called as an edge clearance part, that is also maintained in a table. And the third one is conveyor pulleys, and the fourth one is drives for belt conveyors. And there are something, those are called belt conveyor take-ups or belt tensioning devices. Those are mentioned here. Let me brief you, that is what it is. That is endless conveyor belts, after being threaded through entire length of a conveyor, need to be tightened so that sufficient frictional force is developed between the drive pulley and the belt to make the belt move. And the belts working under tension invariably gets elongated with time, which needs to be taken up to maintain the desired tension in the belt. The belt conveyor generally have a screw type, that is mechanical, or a gravity type counterweight. Counterweight, that is the take-up unit. It is also termed as belt tensioning device. In screw type take-up, let me define that. The bearing blocks for the tail and pulley are located in guideways so that these may be moved by rotating two screws, and when the belt tension needs to be increased, only screw tightening will increase the belt tension. In gravity take-up, the tail and pulley is mounted on a movable carriage, which is pulled backwards along the length of the conveyor by vertically hanging the counterweight connected through the steel rope and deflecting pulleys. In an alternate design, the return side of the belt passes by the bottom of counter-loaded deflector roll, which is free to move down to keep up the belt. Now, the sixth part is loading and unloading devices. We all know that free-flowing material may be directly delivered from a hopper or a bin or a storage pile through a chute. The delivery rate is being controlled by a regulating gate at the hopper or the bin output. For non-free-flowing materials, there is a suitable feeder unit with a chute is used for loading the material centrally onto the belt as evenly and gently as possible. Sideboards or skirt plates or extending considerable length, that is 2 to 3 meter, is generally attached to a conveyor structure to be placed centrally to the belt. It may be covering up to 2/3 or 3/4 width of the belt to maintain a small clearance with the moving belt. For unloading of materials at the end of the head pulley, no device is required excepting the proper chutes or guides to guide the discharge material. Now, for discharging at any point along the length of a conveyor, a plow or belt tripper is used. I will discuss later what is a belt tripper. A plow consists of a rubber tipped blade extending across the belt with an at an angle, maybe it is 60°. A plow may be one-sided discharged or V-shaped blade for a two-side discharge. The belt carrying material must be flat passing over a slider plate at the plow to allow close contact between the belt and rubber tipped plate. Plow is pivoted so that the position is adjusted above the belt to allow control the material being discharged. This is the loading and unloading devices part I am explaining. Now there are belt cleaners. This is a part of belt. There are training idlers. That is also part of belt. Let me tell you something about the training idlers. The belt idlers or the belt training idler consists of ordinary shaft idler, which is mounted on its base by a pivoted shaft about which it can swivel within a limited angle. It will swivel within a limited angle. Two short vertical rollers mounted on bearings are fixed at the two ends of the idler such that they are perpendicular to the belt edges. The vertical rollers are placed slightly ahead of the idler center line. When the belt shifts off center, it makes contact with one of the vertical rollers, which makes the entire idler frame to swivel through an angle. This skewed position of the idler creates a force within which tends to bring the belt back in its central position. In a long conveyor, such training idlers may be placed at about 30 meters to align the belt travel. So this is my part today. Please study well and stay safe. We will again have more classes on chain conveyors and conveyor systems. Thank you very much.